Hello, my horde. It's the moment that no one at all has been waiting for. It's the full reveal of my wedding dress. Ta-da! I know the lighting is terrible over here, so we're gonna take this into some light. I'm gonna throw up some pictures because I'm not putting it on to show you guys because I need help into it and I have no help right now. But this is my dress, and I made it. And today's video is me talking about having made this dress. We're gonna go where there's more light now, though. So here we are where the light is possibly too glaring, but at least you can sort of see. I'm just gonna start with what these materials are. The bodice is costume glitter satin. I don't know if the sparkle really shows up on camera, but it is glitter. And that's just lined with just a regular posh lining. I have a layer of shiny tulle and a layer of just sort of matte chiffon. And then I had to add a layer of crepe back satin for the third layer for less see-throughness. I did originally try to get away with just the first two layers, and it did not work out. But we took away all those problems, and I'm gonna splice in a sketch that when I first had the idea of what I wanted my wedding dress to look like, what I sketched out. As you can see, this actually turned out quite different from the sketch, but it is still actually very much the same style. How I achieved this is this is two different patterns. There was a pattern for the skirt, and that was the high-low skirt that I always knew I wanted a high-low skirt, always, because I love high-low, I really do. Everybody really thought I was gonna go ball gown, but I went high-low. And then to get this Queen Anne style neckline, I ended up with this very retro style bodice. It's one of the like simplicity retro-y pattern dresses, and I just took the bodice. It ended up being, I originally wanted like a full princess seam, but this is how I could find the neckline I really wanted, with this shoulder bit really being as thick as I wanted it. And then actually there's a third pattern, because these cap sleeves are actually the cap sleeves from one of the McCall's like men's like medieval style tops. Because I just love cap sleeves, I really do. So I mixed all of those together. This bodice was originally meant for stretch material. It was not originally a lace back, but I knew that I wanted the back to lace up. So I just cut that back piece, not actually in half. Like when I cut it, instead of cutting on the fold, I cut away from the fold and gave it an extra seam allowance so that I could make the seam there. And then just put in, and these are proper grommets that I worked with for the first time, because I usually work with the cheap ones, but I went with the nice ones because it's my wedding dress. So I was like, I'll just pay for the nice ones, you know? And they worked lovely. They don't catch as much as the cheaper ones do on the ribbons and stuff, because I did just lace with just a ribbon, which is gone somewhere because it had to be taken all the way out for me to get back out of this dress. Fun. And the skirt portion is a zipper rather than continuing the lacing, because that just seemed easier at the time than really trying to get those grommets in there. And by the time I was grommeting, I did have quite a journey with this dress. That's gonna fall over. Sorry guys. As I was saying, I did have quite a journey with this dress. There were originally 3 failed attempts to drape the bodice. I have never professionally learned how to drape. I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and for some reason decided the first thing I should try to drape is my wedding dress. But luckily I started out on that soon enough that when I realized every single attempt at that was gonna fail, I was able to change plans. So then I went and I had been collecting patterns even when I was doing my attempted draping projects, just because I sort of had the idea that I probably wasn't going to succeed at it because it was my first time trying to do something. My last attempt actually is very close, very, very close, but very wrong in the armholes, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it, so I abandoned it because it was time. It was time to abandon it and just start making the dress. Because that was 2-3 months ahead of the wedding, and you know, most people who buy their dresses buy them at least 6 months ahead of time. I had mine done about 2 weeks before the wedding, because there's nothing like a deadline to spur you on. But I did have, and also just because, especially with the bodice, because I chose to use just a commercial pattern, it did end up being harder to get it to fit right. I had fits and tantrums, and when I first finished the dress, I cried because I hated it. And actually I really love it. At the time, you get really in your head when you're making stuff sometimes, and you get so obsessed with the tiny details, and you get so upset with the final product, but you step away for a week and you come back and you're like, this is perfect. And it is. It's perfect. It looks perfect in pictures. Everyone loved it. Like, it's just one of those things where usually I would have my husband, while I'm making stuff, to reassure me that what I'm doing actually does look okay, and that I'm being kind of harsh on myself when I'm like, this is terrible, blah blah blah. Like, my husband is the person I would turn to, like, trying it on or show it to him and be like, this is awful, and he would be like, no, that's great, what are you talking about? But because it was my wedding dress, I couldn't show it to him like that, and I didn't pick anyone to, like, send photos to and be like, am I crazy? I hate this, and have them tell me, yes, you're crazy, it's fine. So I didn't really, it was good. Like, I put it away, cooled off, took it back out, loved it, put it on, and like all my bridesfolk were super excited about it. Like, everybody loved it, and I loved it all the more for that. I know that probably sounds really shallow, that like people telling me it looks good is what like really helped solidify, and that didn't happen until the day of. But like, I knew that this dress is what I wanted. Like, so it was too late to turn back. But I was wrong when I hated the dress. Like, I just was in the artist process of like, you finish the art and you hate the art, and then a week later you're fine with it, you know? But that's actually, if you're someone who's watching this video thinking about maybe making your own wedding dress, my advice to you is pick one or more of your bride's people. Pick your mom, or whoever is a parental figure to you, let me put it that way. Pick one person that you're okay with them not being surprised by your dress. Like, I get that everybody wants to like surprise everybody, but most brides do seem to take their bridal party with them when they go dress shopping and such. So really lean on that and be like, well, we're not doing dress shopping, but come over and have cocktails, soda, whatever, and help me try on my dress that I'm making. Like, at a couple of different stages, so that you have someone there giving you the feedback of like, yeah, this is really working, this is working, because it was really the working in isolation that was, I think, what was bad for my health about this, because I do love the dress now. Like, it's perfect. It like swishes around and it's super pretty, but you know, at the time I had been working in such isolation that I had just been, you know, so focused on like, this seam isn't really as finished as it could be, and like, oh, you're gonna like be able to see inside the like shoulder thing, I didn't do it right. Inside the cap sleeve. Sometimes I get passionate and I forget my words. But in the end, you know, you step away, you put it back on, and you're like, no, wait a second, this is perfect. I went back and I looked at the sketch and I went, this really is that dress. It doesn't have the little collar thing, but this really is that dress. The thing that I wanted all along, I made that. And that is actually what I ended up with, and it's amazing to me, because I just I have amazed myself. Like, I know that this is within my skill range, but just sort of the accuracy is not super common for me. I usually end up with something wildly different than what I drew, but this is that dress. Pretty wholeheartedly, and it's really beautiful to me, for me, that I was able to make that happen for myself, because that vision of what I wanted to look like, I really got there, and I wouldn't have been able to with what's commercially on the market right now. I did look around for a long time, trying to find dresses like this, or dresses close enough to this that I could alter them, but no high-low skirts came with anything other than a sweetheart top, pretty much, and I wasn't going to be able to work with a sweetheart top. I needed at least to start with the Queen Anne neckline. Like, if I was going to alter a wedding dress, it needed to be super close to what I already wanted. And I never found it, so for me, making it was the only way to get that vision. And that's another thing to consider. Again, if you're considering whether you want to make your own wedding dress, can you find what you're going to make commercially available? Because it's not going to be that much cheaper, if at all, to make it, because the materials are expensive. This, I want to say I spent at least $70 in materials for this, and that may or may not include, I can't remember if that number includes my muslin mock-ups, but it does not include all of the price of all of the patterns that I bought that I didn't use, because I was collecting patterns. I was like, maybe I'll use this one, maybe I'll use this one, because I had the fear that, like, if I decide to use it and go back, I won't have it, or because, you know, it was the sale at Joann where Simplicity patterns were, you know, $2. So I was like, definitely just buy the ones that might be helpful. We're just gonna buy 12 patterns right now. So it's without all of that cost, and I know that, like, saying $70 sounds like, oh, you made such a cheap wedding dress, and no, I didn't, because again, I broke down and cried, definitely more than once in the process of making this, because it was so intensely emotional to mess things up, because it is such an important thing. And that's really something to weigh when making the decision, like, is the possible pain involved in making it, the pain in the ass, the tears, the, like, just hours of work, because this is not you know, 2 hours of work or anything. This isn't a dress I made, you know, in 12 hours even. This is a lot. This is lined. I'm sorry, not lined. This is interfaced. The bodice is interfaced. So including cutting out the interfacing and the lining, I cut all of these pieces out 3 times. And then I cut each of these out 3 times for my 3 layers of skirt. And then sewing all of that together. And the fact that the chiffon and the tulle are not fun to try to cut. They're really, really not fun to cut. And some of the unevenness in the line there, while it is stylistically fine, it is what I wanted, kind of. I definitely did want like some like flowiness and movement, and the sort of the unevenness really does that. It really goes with that style. But to be honest, it was an accidental feature. It is a feature. It looks nice and intentional. It was not necessarily intentional. It's just that these fabrics are that hard to cut out. It's a lot of heartache, because that's my least favorite part too. There was so much cutting on this, and I hate cutting. It just is. It's my least favorite part. I like actually sewing stuff together and seeing it come together and like all of that part of the process, but like when you first sit down, you gotta cut out the pattern, and then you gotta cut out all the pieces, and then it's too much for me sometimes. And that's a lot of times I'll cut out a project and then be so tired I don't start sewing it, and it'll sit around for a while sometimes if it's not something that needs to get done, because I'm just like, oh, I did all the cutting, I'm tired, I'm done now. And that definitely happened with this. I would cut out a series of parts and then be like, that's it, I'm done for the night. That's as far as I get right now. And that's okay. Like, pacing your work is good. Know that about yourself. But definitely weigh that. Will I experience more heartache in the process of making my dress than any money I might save is worth? Because yes, you can. If you make a very simple dress like this, you can kind of save money. But if that's not what you want, if you're trying to make something big and fancy, it might just be better to just buy it. When you weigh in how much of your own time and how much that time is worth to you, it may not actually be more expensive at all to just buy the dress, have someone else alter it, or do the alterations, but just buy the dress. But that's a choice everyone has to think about and make for themselves. Cool, my computer made a noise there. When I decided to make my own dress, I had watched a lot of videos and had read a lot of people say that, like, the thing they regret is making their own dress. I currently don't feel that way. I can't guarantee my feelings in the future, but I don't feel that way at all. But all of the advice I had seen was, don't make your own dress, don't make your own dress. But for me, there's a lot. There was a lot that it was important for me to make the dress. It very much is a thing I just assumed for a long time. I think I looked at so many wedding dresses. Like, when I first got engaged, I did. I didn't go to any bridal shop. I did not try any dress on, because I looked and looked and looked, and nothing was even close to what I wanted. and high-low had fallen out of fashion, and I couldn't even find them at some places. Like David's Bridal's like high-low selection was so laughable that I just didn't even go in. So for at least a year before the wedding, I knew I was gonna have to make my dress if I wanted that style, this style. And I had set in on it early enough, and it had really settled into my bones as the right decision, you know? And I drew that sketch, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, a part of me is like, I have this now to put in my portfolio, which is something I've been thinking about in the last year. Again, expanding my portfolio, and this is, it's great because I got to make my dream wedding dress, and also I'm gonna put it in my portfolio for sure, especially because it turned out so close to the sketch. I'm super excited about that, as far as being able to present my work, and like I really can find a way to make what I'm envisioning. So I don't know, I listened to the advice, and I know why it's not right for everyone to make their own dress, but then I ignored all the advice because I was just like, I'm pretty much a professional dressmaker at this point. Not a professional talker though, and yet I kinda am. But like people are gonna think like, she's probably gonna make her own dress, and yeah, I probably am, and I did. It was right for me. Yeah, I went through some stuff about it, but I also, you know, was experiencing unrelated depression. It wasn't necessarily related to doing this. I went through, just a few weeks before the wedding, I went through a really, really weird, dark time. And I'm so glad I was able to, like, pull out of that and actually appreciate and enjoy the, like, last several days before the wedding and everything. I made so much stuff the day before the wedding, like for the wedding, and it was good. Like, it was a good day. And the wedding was a freaking amazing day. But yeah, I refound joy that I had lost, which was not entirely because of this. There were chemical factors in my brain that were part of that. So I won't tell anyone that they shouldn't make their own dress. I think that you should think about it, and you should think about it long and hard. And if you can possibly find what you want, especially, you know, obviously in your price range, but other factors, all the other factors, if you can find what you want, go buy it. But if in your heart of hearts you really, really want to make your dress as a point of pride, which was certainly a factor for me, or the wedding industry just isn't in your favor right now and you can't find a dress at all, go ahead and start looking into making it, but start looking at it early and often, and keep checking. If you haven't started making it, keep checking. I kept checking the whole time. I kept looking at dresses. I kept looking at, like, the David Bridal's website and all of that, and still nothing came up until like a week after the wedding. I found something and I was like, that would have been pretty good to start with, but it was too late. So you never know. But like, just keep your thumb on the beat and just sort of try to really think about it and just make an informed decision, and don't just don't just dive into it without any research. Whether you've been sewing for a long time or you suddenly decide you want to sew your wedding dress, which probably, that last one's probably not a good thing. I won't tell you you can't, because you can do whatever you want to do. But that's probably, your wedding dress probably isn't the time to learn how to make a dress, unless you're going to also make your bridesmaids' dresses and make those first and then make your wedding dress. I wouldn't suggest doing that either, but that's a thing that just came out of my mouth, so we're gonna leave it in. And then, I know this is getting pretty long and lengthy, but the last thing I was gonna talk about in this is my veil. I will get a little bit closer with this in just a second, but here it is. And veils are very simple. Very simple. So even if you're not much of a sewer, you probably can make this. So if you want to do something handmade, maybe a handmade veil and not necessarily your whole dress. Mine is blue, obviously, because you can see probably. It is blue. This was, our wedding colors were teal and like a nice dark pink. And my shoes were teal, and I decided to match my veil to my shoes, just because I liked the pop of color, and it turned out really good, and it was actually a really good decision. And then, as you can see here, I have these little tatted pieces here, and this white piece is actually, my grandmother tatted that, and I found it after she passed away. Her tatting kit was given to me, and I found that in her tatting kit about a year after it was given to me, because it took me that long to decide to open it, weirdly enough. But I took this out, and I knew that it had to be somewhere on my wedding dress or on my veil, in my hair, whatever. I knew that I needed to use this because it's such a perfect, cute little flower. As I was saying before some stuff happened, I knew that I had to use this because it's such a perfect, cute, tatted little flower. It is just absolutely, like, it's perfect. My grandmother was very good at tatting. And then there was also this teal thread on this. Light's bad up here, but on this teal flower here, this teal thread was in the kit as well, and I knew I just had to learn to tat and make a matching flower in the color, because that was my wedding color, and we had decided the color like a long time ago, and I realized I just had to, and this is how I ended up incorporating them. I put them on the veil, and it's just, it felt really special to me. There's my grandmother's work and my work side by side. It was one of those things that was important to me. But as far as making a veil is really just a big half circle, flat top, circular, so just half a circle there, and you gather the flat part, and what I did was, you have the comb there to be able to put it in your hair, and what I did is I took a separate strip of the same color of tulle and wrapped it around and tied it on, and that's, you can kind of see, maybe not, but yeah, I wrapped it around so that I'd have something to sew the full piece to, and then I gathered the piece down and sewed it to that, just by hand. And that's super simple, very easy. I originally started with 2 layers, but 2 layers was too poofy, so I went down to 1 layer, and this worked. And I literally made this the night before the wedding. I didn't know if I was gonna have a veil or not until the night before the wedding, because I just hadn't made it, hadn't really decided. I cut out the 2 pieces and it was too poofy, and I didn't didn't like it. So I just went like, rah, and put it to the side. And then one of my friends came over before the rehearsal, and they were like, well, did you try it with just one layer? And I'm like, no, of course I didn't do that, because I'm like so full of my head right now that I don't think properly. So then I was like, one layer. Yeah, that looks fine. Maybe I'll do that. And then I set it aside, and then I didn't do it until after the rehearsal that night. And actually, after the dinner we had after the rehearsal, it wasn't really a rehearsal dinner because we didn't pay for it or plan it. But everyone wanted to go to dinner, so we went to dinner. We did have a dinner after our rehearsal, but after that we came home and I made a veil. And that's the story of how that happened. So there's my rather lengthy experience and opinions on making my own wedding dress and veil, and a little bit about how I went about it. Not a tutorial in any sense of the word, not really even tips and tricks either, but just some techniques that I used, but not in any sort of detail. So I'm thinking about actually making a video that is specifically about combining commercial patterns, how to, or sort of just showing me doing that and like, oh wow, you actually can do that. Maybe if that sounds like a video that would interest you, leave a comment. I might do it whether anybody comments about it or not, but it'd be nice to know that you actually want to see it. Well, that's finally it for today, and I'll see you next time.